COVID-19 has killed over 150,000 Americans. Nearly half of those Americans were residents of nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. A handful of Democratic governors, including New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, are facing backlash after sending elderly COVID-positive patients into nursing homes during the pandemic. With such a vulnerable population, it sparked hotspots of infections and deaths. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we're speaking with a Catholic theologian who says he hopes this will force us all to re-examine how our culture treats the elderly, and that more families will consider caring for their elderly family members at home instead of at nursing homes. Charlie Camosy is Associate Professor of Theology at Fordham University, a bioethicist, and author of Resisting Throwaway Culture. Charles, welcome. What has been brought to the light during this pandemic when it comes to elderly care and nursing homes?
Well, can we think for a moment just about some of the numbers you just gave us? 50%, I think between 40 and 50% of all COVID deaths have been nursing home residents or residents of other long-term care facilities. That is an outrageous number. That is an offensive number. And it's frankly a wake-up call for us to rethink how we treat our elderly. I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. You know, there are good nursing homes out there. Some of them are run by Catholic organizations like Catholic Charities. I've had good conversations with those people. But in other situations, we need to speak honestly, frankly about this. It's more like a warehouse. It's a throwaway culture where we put people to be for a certain amount of time until they die. We even, as you mentioned, dumped COVID-positive patients into these homes and lit a fire of death, and it's just an awful infection rate. And what are we doing? We got to take a hard look at our practices. One of those practices I suggest is frankly that we take a look at how we can treat our loved ones more often at home instead of in nursing homes.
Charles, but caring for an elderly family member at home can be a full-time job, requiring a lot of energy and resources. So what do you say to a Catholic family who says they do not have the bandwidth or finances to care for a loved one at home, and that a nursing home is the best decision for their family?
Yeah, it's not a panacea. It's not work for everyone. And I'm glad you're raising that issue. It's very real. And in those situations, we just frankly need to do a better job with nursing homes. And the church needs to mobilize here too. So it's not just the government. So many of these folks in nursing homes are desperately lonely. I was thinking about how the church could respond. There are just numerous ways, but here are just maybe two we might think about. What about confirmation volunteers? What about using those volunteer hours in such homes, especially with technology, hooking up older people with technology to their families would be super important. Or I also seen on Facebook pen pal exchanges, which are really cute and awesome and just so needed. But frankly, why should it be the rich be the only ones who can afford to take care of their loved ones at home? And we need good nursing homes, but we need care at home too, which is one reason I've been pushing and other groups have been pushing for the government to fund in-home nursing care for all populations, middle class, lower class, upper class, everyone. And that's something that's being talked about right now with the COVID Phase 4 bill.
And finally, just briefly, can you help us to connect the dots when it comes to caring for our elderly and opposing a culture that promotes assisted suicide and euthanasia?
Well, if we have a warehouse model for how we treat our elderly and those with dementia and other folks, it's going to become pretty clear to many people that they just want out. They don't want to have that kind of life where they're just shoved away and thrown away. In fact, when we look at the reasons why people request assisted suicide, it has very little with physical pain and suffering. It's fear of being a burden on others. So we need to take full advantage of honor thy father and mother and the resources the church and government can bring to bear to make that possible.
Thank you for raising this issue. Charlie Camosy with Fordham University, thank you.